Lots to talk about. Congressman Jeff Duncan is joining us right now. Congressman Duncan, always a pleasure. Thanks for calling in, sir. How are you?
Well, Charlie, it's always great to be on you. Good afternoon to you and your listeners.
Thank you. Let me just start this off because everybody's talking about these tapes that Tucker Carlson aired the other night. Did you get a chance to watch those, and what was your opinion?
Well, I haven't watched them. I have read the news articles today, and we all know that the January 6th committee had a slant and spin on what they showed. I've seen other videos, especially around the DCCC, where supposed pipe bombs were placed, and that video from different camera angles was skewed to show a narrative instead of showing the truth. So it's time to get the truth out there for the American people about what exactly happened that day.
It really is, and I don't think the January 6th committee had any interest in finding the truth. Do you?
No, they were just spinning it to paint the narrative that Donald Trump was involved and that this was an attack on the Capitol. And, ultimately it was Americans coming to petition the government for redress of grievances, which is constitutional right. And it did get out of hand, and there were violations, and they should be dealt with. But for the most part, it was, a lot of people had concerns about the election and how it was handled.
So what is being done to make sure that our elections are more fair, more transparent in the future?
Well, I think the state legislatures around the country have they've done the lion's share of the work, really. In Congress, the Democrats controlled us in the last Congress, and they were pushing more restrictive legislation through on voting rights and elections. And, Americans know that there were malfeasance. There was malfeasance during the election in certain states where the Constitution was violated. The Constitution gives the General Assembly or the state legislatures the rights to govern elections, but we saw Supreme Court in Pennsylvania, individual election officials, secretaries of state making arbitrary decisions about how elections should be held and what votes counted and what didn't on mail-in ballots and how mail-in ballots were handled in general. And that's really up to the legislature. So there were multiple instances where the states egregiously violated the constitutional mandate.
Right. You're absolutely right. So let's switch now to the lab leak theory. For a long time, they've been denying that the coronavirus escaped from a lab in Wuhan, China. We're finding out now the Department of Energy, even Christopher Wray over the FBI, saying that their prevailing theory is that it escaped from a lab, in whether intentionally or unintentionally. How much more of an investigation do we need done into the origins of the coronavirus?
Well, first and foremost, I think the Department of Energy ought to work on our energy needs and get an energy plan for this country and get us back on track to lower fuel prices, energy prices for Americans instead of investigating COVID leak. But they did. And they've come to the same conclusion that multiple sources have, that it leaked from a lab. Now we have to investigate gain-of-function research, who authorized that, where the money came from. Hearings went on today in Jim Jordan's Committee on Judiciary. We're going to vote Friday on a bill to require the Director of National Intelligence to declassify information relating to the origin of COVID-19. So that'll happen on Friday. So there's a lot of work up here. Look, the lab leak theory was silenced and censored and mocked by big tech and corporate media. Your listeners know it. I know it. We all know it. The censorship of that is alarming. That's what you see in communist countries, not in the United States of America. Americans want answers to, where COVID originated, and also on the U.S. response and how vaccines were manufactured rather rapidly and then forced on the American people with mandates, and ultimately what we see possibly happening from those vaccines. So there's just a lot of questions, Charlie, out there that the American people have, and I hear it every day.
One of the things that you mentioned was conservatives being censored. We not only saw that with coronavirus, we saw it with the Hunter Biden laptop story. I bet I could go to my Gmail account right now and look into the spam folder, and it'll be full of Donald Trump emails. Social media, big tech, has really been censoring conservatives. Anything being done about that, as far as as long as we're talking about the upcoming elections as well? Anything that we need to know about what Congress is doing to make sure that Americans' voices are being heard?
Yeah, absolutely. There's 3 committees that really have some jurisdiction and are looking into that. One is the Oversight Committee, chaired by Jamie Comer, and they're investigating it. The Judiciary Committee from the legal standpoint, and then on Energy and Commerce from a telecom standpoint, looking at the 230 protections that social media platforms, the internet were given what tweaks need to be made there, exposing the truth to the American people that, there was a side to all the stories that was censored by mainstream media and big tech social media platforms primarily. You mentioned Gmail and Google, how
Right.
they were involved and many times in collusion with the White House, the Biden administration, and others within the government. And that's wrong. We certainly know the FBI was involved in talking with big tech about certain conspiracy theories, as they called them, but we now know that was the truth, right. And the truth will prevail.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking with Congressman Jeff Duncan. You posted a story the other day. We all know that agriculture is big business here in South Carolina. What about some of the Biden administration's, regulations and how they're hurting the average American farmer out there, the people that put the food on the table for our families? Is there any help for those folks coming?
Absolutely. The Biden administration reconstituted an Obama-era EPA reg called Waters of the U.S., and if you think about it, they have gone and designated even ditches that only have water during inclement rain events as navigable waterways. And so one thing Congress is doing through the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, and it'll be part of an energy package we mark up this week, and it'll be on the floor at the end of the month, to start pushing back against the WOTUS rule. And then we're going to have to come back and put in, Congress is, what a navigable waterway is and what can be regulated under the EPA's Clean Water Act, and try to unleash these farmers from these regulatory burdens they're facing. And it's not just farmers. It could be at your home collecting rainwater off your roof.
Yep.
So we've got to push back, and the American people want us to push back.
Absolutely. Your office sent out a letter today regarding the United States Trade Representative and Department of Commerce expressing concerns over foreign jurisdictions using competition policy to block U.S. companies' acquisitions. What was this letter about?
Well, we've seen all the agencies of the Biden administration really try to cripple business in this country and their ability to acquire companies, even bring companies back to U.S. soil to manufacture here. And sometimes that's done through acquisitions, and then those businesses are rolled into a broader industry. And so what we're trying to do is just, signal to the administration, the Treasury Department in this instance, that, we want to unleash American manufacturing. We want to unleash businesses and give them the ability to reinvest their profits and grow the economy, create jobs. That's ultimately what it's about, Charlie. It's just helping manufacturers create jobs, keep those jobs on the book, provide payroll that ultimately pays taxes, but also puts money in the economy, drives down the inflation rate. Spending money, growing the economy will do that, not heavy-handed government policies that we see are driving inflation up, driving interest rates up to try to curb inflation, and Americans are feeling the pain. They're spending more on credit cards. Credit card debt's higher. It's because of the pain at the pump, the pain with inflationary prices, scarcity of products on the retailer shelves. Products need to be manufactured here in the United States because supply chain issues that are hampering everything from medical products to automotive products. And so we've just got to push back, and that's what we're trying to do at every turn.
One of the great things about Donald Trump is he was pro-business. He fostered a pro-business attitude towards government. It seems to be completely the opposite with the Biden administration. They seem to be anti-business, don't they?
They really do. And you heard the president of the State of the Union, things he said at the State of the Union, Donald Trump had said about American manufacturing, America first, and Donald Trump was called a nationalist or a socialist or a fascist for doing that. And then Biden says the same thing, and he's heralded. We know the Biden administration is trying to hurt, American manufacturing and American businesses. I don't know why, unless they want us to actually revert to a third world country and exert more power over us. They're already crippling the American energy sector on many fronts. That's driving your transportation fuels up, but it's also hurting baseload power generators in South Carolina and other states. And so this big push toward green energy, I like renewables. I think they ought to be part of the energy matrix, but they're intermittent, and we need a power that provides that 24/7, 365 baseload power that the utility customers demand and expect every day.
Absolutely. Congressman Jeff Duncan, a pleasure talking to you, sir. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Okay, Charlie. Thanks so much. God bless.
Take care. We'll be right back. This is the Charlie James Show, 106.3 WO.